Hello everyone, welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith, and in this video we're going to be starting off the actual playthrough for Nemesis, the Untold Stories in mission number 1. Now, if you haven't checked out the setup video for this, you're going to want to do that so you can understand how we got to where we currently are. There's going to be a link for that in the top right hand corner of this video right now. And also, you'll notice in the very center of the ship, we have the soldier in red and the mechanic in orange. But there has been a change to who will be joining us on this journey, and it's no longer going to be the mechanic. And it's kind of given away by the fact you can see the word scientist in the bottom left hand corner. So you're probably wondering, how did this change come to be? Well, I have some exciting news for you. Officially, the Rolling Solo Patreon has launched, and you'll see in the top right hand corner I'll have a link to that Patreon if you want to go check that out. And that's a way in which you can support the channel to allow me to produce more content in the future and make additions and changes to the channel over time. They're going to enhance the channel as a whole, and in return I'm able to give you guys some really cool benefits and behind the scenes advantages that I wouldn't normally be able to do through the medium of YouTube. So if you're willing to support me there, that would be fantastic, but there's no obligation to do so. Now, on the element of the scientist replacing the mechanic, that came from a poll from the Patreon itself. And this is, again, a connection piece with you guys, the viewers, to allow you to actually change the playthrough as it happens. And I'll be doing this through the Patreon as much as I possibly can, because I really think it's cool to kind of add that element of you guys being the voice behind some of these playthroughs as we go through. So the mechanic has been subbed out. The scientist is replacing the mechanic, and now we're going to have to replace the miniature. So the mechanic will be removed from the game, and instead the scientist joins the soldier. Something else that's really exciting to mention is the fact that literally between the filming of the solo setup and this particular video I'm doing right now, I got the delivery of wave number 2 for Nemesis, which includes some terrain elements. So these doors that we set up earlier are going to get quite the facelift. Now that looks so much better. You can even see the amazing detail on the doors. There's 2 different sculpts for these particular terrain pieces, one of which has giant claw marks going through the door in one, and the other has kind of a blast mark through the door itself, but they have so much character and really do add to the element of immersion within the game. Again, they're also much larger in size, which is nice because they're relative to the actual miniature sizes of the human players, and of course a little bit more normal when an alien's actually sitting up against them versus the standees. These door terrain pieces look even better when zoomed in even closer on camera, so hopefully from this vantage point you can see much more of the detail in these doors. But without further ado, how about we begin with the player phase? So the scientist is going to kick things off, being that he has the first player token. So not only did he bump the mechanic out of the picture, but gets to go first. Pretty good day for him. So we're going to go ahead now and do the very first thing we do based on the help card. So if you're not familiar with the game, this help card will give you an idea of every step you need to do during the player phase. And you can see there are a number of steps here. And then it moves into the event phase, of which a number of these are actually skipped for this cooperative Untold Stories adventure, at least within mission number 1, because we don't have intruders in this first mission. So this is another thing to talk about in terms of this first mission. If you're using this first mission to gauge how really enjoyable the Nemesis co-op experience is in terms of these Untold Stories books 1 and 2, then you're going to be likely disappointed, because the intruders actually are not going to be a part of this first mission, and they're a major element of the game. But once we get past this very first mission, then we would see them in future missions and things really start to amp up. Again, think of this as a tutorial mission. All right, so let's draw up 5 cards for the scientist and see what our starting hand looks like. The very first card off the top of the deck is Search. That's a pretty good one to have, although it's bad because we're in the command center, and during setup, the command center was set to 0 search ability inside of that room, meaning there's not any availability for us to search there. We'll have to go somewhere else if we want to use this card for its text or ability on it. You can see here it's a search card, can't use it in combat, and down below it says reduce the item counter by 1. And like I mentioned, that item counters on the command center we're currently standing in with the scientist is already at 0, so that wouldn't really be able to be doable right now. Draw 2 item cards of the same color as the room you're in. The command center is red, so that's for military. That's likely going to be guns, ammo, all that good stuff, things to kill things, which is great, because remember, in this first mission we can stock up and bring some of that stuff into the next mission, which would be really handy. But it also mentions that we have to pick one and discard the other, so we do get to take 2 cards from that deck, determine which one we want, and then discard the other one. So useful, but just not where I'm currently standing. Next card in the deck is another search card. So we're going to have the ability to do lots of searching, so that's good. Another thing to note on these cards is you've got this icon right here. So what I'll mention about this is, if you can just imagine for a second that this search card had a 1 in here, and we were actually in a room that was able to be searched and able to have the dial turned from 1, say, down to 0 to search, we would pay this card by actually discarding it, play the card to the table, it'll end up in the discard pile. Then we always check the card itself to see if there's a numerical value in this box, and if there is, you have to pay that much more in terms of cards out of your hand into the discard pile for this ability. So for instance, if this search had a 1 in here, I'd have to play this card and discard it to get this ability, plus I'd have to discard something else to pay for the 1 that's in here. So it's kind of something you'd have to visualize there, because I don't actually have a 1 sitting in this card, but that gives you an idea. Always think of this white area here as additional cards you need to pay in order to actually do the thing on the card that you played, if that makes sense. So hopefully you'll see that in action. Of course you will, as we go through the playthrough. And the next card in line here is an interruption. Okay, so an interruption actually handles itself quite differently when you're playing cooperatively solo. So in this particular case with the interruption card, because you're not playing with other players, you're not interrupting a player, you're actually going to be interrupting the game itself or potentially events. So the way it states inside of the Untold Stories booklet is that the interruption card is still important. It's really good to have in your hand because it can potentially prevent or stop or mitigate really bad situations that can come around. So getting this right off the hop is really good, because I'm going to hold on to this and not use it to spend or discard to pay for something else, because it could really help me later on. So that's a great one to get off the start and have a little bit of an insurance policy. Next card we've got here is Blocking Access. So this one has, you can see, an or symbol. So we can do either or of these. And again, the top thing here, this icon, has a 0 inside. So we can just play this card as long as it's not in combat to do either or. So the first one here says use in a room with a computer to use this room's action without paying its cost. Pretty cool. Or we can use in a room with a computer to place a malfunction marker in any one room with a computer. And lastly, we've got the 5th card, and that is Demolition. So Demolition is another or card. Destroy one closed door in a corridor connected to the room you're in, or place a malfunction marker in the room you're in. So that's actually a really good one, knowing that we have 5 doors surrounding the engine rooms that we need to get into. This demolition card could really help us get through one of those doors. And you know what? That's probably going to be something we'll be holding on to as well. Now, if you're wondering exactly what I was talking about in terms of the search limits of a particular room, or you didn't check out the solo setup that I had prior, this is what I'm referring to. There's an arrow next to every spot where a location tile can be placed, and you can see there's numerical values around the tile. So that's going to denote how many times a particular tile could be searched. You'll see that for the setup of this video, or at least this mission, we have it set to 0, and that's the way it should be from the very beginning. So we have no availability to search in this room, but it isn't malfunctioning. And because it's not malfunctioning, and when I'm talking about malfunctioning, I'm talking about the command center itself, we could potentially use the computer inside the command center here. And this allows us, as you can see with some text underneath this particular title right here, to open and close doors at a cost of 2. Now this card right here is absolutely perfect for what I want to do. You can see here, if I go ahead and play this card, there's no additional cost. It's 0, so I just play the card. I have to do it outside of combat, which I'm doing, and I can choose to use either or. In the top one here, it says blocking access as a title, then it says use in a room with a computer, which there is a computer icon in the command center, and use this room's action without paying its cost. So that's something you don't want to miss, because this is essentially using one card to be able to access or open and close some doors, versus spending the normal 2 cards to actually control things from the command center. So I'm absolutely going to discard this blocking access card, and we're going to mess around with some of the doors near those engine rooms. Now there is an absolutely fantastic reference sheet that you're going to want to keep an eye on for every room that's involved in this game, and it looks like this. It's double-sided and it has all the details for each of the rooms. It might seem like a lot to actually take in, but you can see here for the command center, it's actually quite simple. There's just a little bit of text here in the top section, very easy to follow, and it essentially says you can choose any one room and close and open any doors in corridors connected to this room. So you're essentially choosing a room to focus your hacking abilities with, and then you're going to open and close whichever doors in those tunnels you so choose to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and choose the one right here in front of us. So I'll choose this room right here. So these corridors are available to me. So I could even close this door, but that'd be quite silly because I know I need to try to get in there. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove both of these doors. Now I'm actually kind of tempted to only open one of them, but that could really backfire on me as well. I don't know how this is going to pan out. So now again, we know there's not going to be any intruders in this first mission, so there's not too much strategy in terms of how many doors I should keep open or closed. That would make me think normally, and that's probably where my head is going right now. But I think because we're playing this through in a solo cooperative mode, plus there's no intruders supposedly in this one, then I guess the events are the only thing that's going to really hurt me so much. So I think I'll go ahead and open both doors. So what you just saw was a completion of a single action for the scientist. Now I get 2 actions with the scientist before I have to move it over to the soldier. And there's a number of things you can do on your turn when you're actually doing an action. You can play a card from your hand like I just did. You could do a basic action, or you could do a careful movement. And a basic action actually is broken out into movement, shooting, melee attack, picking up a heavy object, trading, and crafting. All those things are listed right on the player board itself, and you'll see that as we move through. Now, if I decide as my second action to pass, I'm done. I am done until the event phase comes around for that character. But what that means essentially is if I chose to pass right now, I would hold the 4 cards I have in my hand, I would move and then start going ahead with actions with the soldier, and because the soldier is the only one left, the soldier would just continue to play through actions until the soldier decides to go ahead and pass. And once the soldier decides to pass, then we move to the event phase. So every character has to choose to pass at some point. You can do it early, you can do it late, and you can choose to have lots of cards in your hand at the end when you pass, or have none. It's up to you, but there is a game mechanic involved with holding cards in your hand. There's strategy when intruders are around, because when intruders are part of the equation, having cards in your hand when you choose to pass is a good thing. It prevents surprise attacks. But because we know with this particular mission there isn't going to be any intruders, we can essentially burn cards like crazy during our turn, meaning we can do as much as humanly possible in order to maximize our turns. So that's kind of what we want to do from a strategy standpoint. So the scientist does have one more action to spend, so this is a quick reminder of the basic actions. They cost one card discarded in order to either move, shoot, do a melee attack, pick up a heavy object, trade, craft an item, or we can do some careful movement for it too. Again, careful movement, melee attacks, and shooting right now, not so useful because we don't need to worry about generating noise at all. There's no intruders and we're not attacking anything. So those are things we're just not going to be doing during this mission, but they will definitely come into play later on. So the question becomes, what else do I want to do, and what do I really want to hold on to in my hand for future turns? Now, I really want to take advantage of these search cards, knowing that we can gear up for future missions. So what I'm going to do is, even though I love the demolition card, that's going to be useful for taking out a door later on, I think it'll cycle through my deck by the time that I actually need it. And being that we have the command center there and we also have the soldier there, maybe the soldier can interact with the command center to open up those other two doors on the opposite side. So what I'll do is I'm going to spend this demolition card here, discarding this, not for the demolition itself, but to actually do some movement with my scientist. So I'm going to go ahead and have the scientist move to this location right here. So we're going to move over here. We're going to go ahead and take this exploration token and flip this over. And we got ourselves slime and a 3. Interesting indeed. Let's see what we have for an actual tile. We found the storage room. All right, so we'll take that red arrow that's sitting on the game board. We'll make sure that this is set to 3, and we have the ability to search 3 times in this room. And what worked out really nicely with this is the fact that I have 2 search cards. But first, before we do anything else, we now need to go to the Legend of the Untold Stories book, and we need to determine what happens when slime shows up. So our scientist enters the storage room and notices slime everywhere. It says here in the comic, it smelt like, I imagine, toxic waste wood. The scientist's first thought was to get it off himself right now. And that's when the scientist noticed it. He doesn't even remember the names. He doesn't know how they ended up on his skin. And you can see in the bottom right-hand corner of the book, it says, discard 2 cards at random from your hand. So that's pretty punishing, seeing as I only have 3 cards left anyway. So this is not good and could actually totally mess up my plan of searching this room. Put 1 clue into the campaign pool, so I will definitely be doing that, and continue the mission. Alright, so the scientist has been slowed down a little bit, moving into the storage room, finding this slime, and then basically examining his own arm, trying to figure out where these tattoos have come from. I have to now discard 2 cards from my hand, and I have 3, so let's do this at random. I don't even know which 2 I should select, to be honest. Ouch, there goes one of my search cards. Oh, I really don't want to actually pull another search one. That would be really sad, because I want to search in this room. Oh, just got super lucky there. So I will have a search available. Now, you might be wondering, could I have used interruption to stop this from happening or to prevent it? Well, the actual book states that there are special events in the comic that will let you know when an interruption card could be used to prevent something nasty from happening, but it doesn't look like I'll have that in my hand any longer, as I just lost it. And that completes the second action for the scientist. Now we're going to move over to the soldier and draw 5 cards for the starting hand. Alright, so the soldier is going to kick things off. Let's see what the soldier has. Demolition. Haha, look at that. Destroy 1 closed door in a corridor connected to a room you're in, or place a malfunction marker in the room you are in. Nice. That could be handy to get through one of those doors in the future. Taking aim, perform a shoot action with your energy weapon. You can reroll your first result on the combat die, so a good card when making attack. So this is a card I'm going to probably want to spend, being that we're not going to see any intruders, at least unless the comic has something scary for me. Full auto. Now again, remember, this is the soldier, so there's going to be lots to do with combat here. Discard all ammo from the assault rifle. Wow, that's a lot. To perform a shoot action, you deal 1 additional injury for every 2 ammo discarded. Wow, even if you miss. So that's really just kind of unloading all the barrels, every bit of ammo on the enemy. That's pretty cool. Next one is basic repairs. Discard a malfunction marker in the room you're in, or repair and break the engine in the engine room you're in. So that's actually a really good one for when the soldier actually gets into the engine room. So that's something to keep in mind. You're going to want to have those to repair the engine. So that's going to be handy. And then the last card, Covering Fire. Discard 1 ammo, move yourself and or one other chosen character within your room if they agree, without triggering an intruder attack. So again, you're kind of moving together, covering each other. So those are the 5 cards that I have. Now let's try to decide how we should use them. The soldier's first action is going to be to discard 2 cards in order to pay for the cost of using the command center to open some doors. So he is going to hack into the library from the command center and is going to open up the 2 doors in the corridors between the laboratory and engine room number 3. So we're going to go ahead and remove the doors from those areas as he opens them up. So for the soldier's second action, the interesting thing to note here in terms of the layout of the ship is we are able to get to the hibernatorium. We're supposed to actually get there to end the mission in order to be safe. But you'll notice there we also have a nest down here, which has an event that is going to trigger when we move into it, as well as the monitoring room up there. But you can see it's going to kind of force us to go out this way and then either to one of those 2 undiscovered rooms and then down to the engine rooms. But then on the way back, when we're trying to race back to the hibernatorium, we're not going to be able to come back through the command center. There's no linkage from the command center to the hibernatorium, so we'll have to go around, which is going to force us to go through the nest or the monitoring room, and I don't know what's going to happen in either of those cases to us. The nest does not sound like something we want to run through, but we may not have a choice. And again, time is going to tick down. We are currently 3 turns away from an event, number 6, triggering as the self-destruct track moves down. So we're trying to make the most of all of our actions here. So I think I should get this individual, the soldier, on the move. So I'm going to go ahead and use the Taking Aim card in order to discard this card to allow me to move. And I'm going to have this soldier move into the same room, the storage room, as the scientist. So we've come back around to the scientist, and again, the scientist will be able to go ahead and activate and have 2 actions because the scientist didn't pass on his prior turn. Once again, all the characters pass, then we move to the event phase. So we go back to the scientist. I have 1 card left, and that card is the search card. You guys knew that. And it doesn't require me to pay anything extra in order to do it. I'm in a room, the storage room, that allows me to search, which is perfect. This says reduce the item counter by 1 and draw 2 item cards of the same color as the room you are in. Pick 1 and discard the other. The great thing about this particular card is the fact that we can pick 2 and choose the one we want. And it's going to be based on the color of the room we're in, which is red. So the scientist is going to push the soldier out of the way just because he wants to be front and center. And we're going to take a look at the arrow here in the back. It's on the 3. We're going to tick this down to a 2. You'll see that the actual banner of the storage room is red. So that's where we're getting that red from. Now we're going to go to the item deck and pull 2 cards off the top of the deck. And I'll get to choose one. All right, this is always the fun part. What kind of items have we found in our storage room? We found ourselves an energy charge. This allows us to fully load ammo in 1 energy weapon or open or close 1 door in any corridor connected to the room you're in. That's really helpful, not only to recharge our weapons later on, but also to open up that last door, especially now that we're not in the command center and we don't, well, technically the soldier still has a demolition card, but could lose that. And this card would allow me as the scientist to have a card as a backup to get through that door. Could be useful. Lots of different ways I could go there. The other one is a smoke grenade, and this one says use in the room you're in. All other characters in this room lose 1 action card each because of course you're stumbling around in this smoke infested room when it goes off, so thematically you're slowing down, you're not going to be as useful. And you move to a neighboring room and intruders don't attack you during that movement. Again, a great card for the future. Maybe not the greatest card for right now, but if we're trying to stow away good items to help us later on, that could be a good one. So the question becomes, which one is better? Is it better to be able to open or close a door, or is it better to have a smoke grenade? Really is what it comes down to, because I know I don't need the ammo right now. And I know, based on the ratio of cards in that red item deck, that there is more energy charges in there than there are smoke grenades. So I think I'm going to lean towards the smoke grenade in terms of planning for the future. So I'm going to take this card and put it in my inventory. this other card is going to be discarded. So the scientist has now gone ahead and placed a smoke grenade in his inventory. It's really cool to note the fact that there is no limit to the number of items that you can have in hand. And I'm talking regular items. Remember, if you're talking heavy items like this pistol here with this hand symbol kind of holding a handle, you can only ever have 2 of those, but there's no limit to the amount of items that you can have. So this is again the reason why this mission number 1 is really important, to kind of hoard up a whole bunch of really useful items going into the next mission. So you'll see here also we've got ourselves a card tray that comes inside of Nemesis as well. This is much better suited for the mini cards than it is for the cards you're playing out of your hand. So I highly recommend you don't use this, because you could probably fit about 3 regular size cards across this thing anyway. This is much better suited and is primarily made for the item cards that you're going to gather throughout the game, so that other players, if you happen to be playing with other players, can only see the backs of the cards but can't see the items that you've picked up. When you're playing solo or cooperative like I am right now, that doesn't matter, but it is super useful for organization. So the scientist has completed the first action, and I have no more cards, so I can't do a second action. So I am forced to pass with the scientist and head back over to the soldier. So to make that more obvious, flip over that help card to the pass side. Soldier has 2 cards in hand. This is a tough choice as to which one I want to get rid of in order to move, because that's what I'd really like to do. One helps me with repairing and breaking engines. I want to repair one. The other helps me destroy closed doors. I need both of them. But you know, you can't hold on your cards forever if you want to progress. So I'm going to go ahead and choose to spend demolition, and I'm going to use it in order to move. So by spending the demolition card in order to do movement, the soldier is going to head up this way, revealing this exploration token, which has a 1 on it for items and a flame. We'll check very soon in the Untold Stories book for what this particular flame icon is going to have us resolve in terms of an event. But first, let's flip over the room tile, find out what we're dealing with here. So we've got ourselves, the surgery room. So we're going to go ahead and place this with the 1 up to the arrow right there, denoting that we can search this room once. You'll see it's for the green tier cards, which are going to help us with healing. So that's not so bad. Now we're going to go ahead and reference that flame icon in the Untold Stories book. Event 4 talks about a pipe burst. This does not sound good. It says the ship has hundreds of veins that silently pump its fluids. Reactor coolant, hydraulic oil, thruster fuel, drinkable water, and waste. No one really remembers or cares what goes where. Until... That does not look good for the soldier. This character suffers 1 serious wound, and if this character discards an interrupt card, this serious wound is reduced to a light wound. So there is a perfect example of where, if the soldier happened to have the interrupt card, which he has not seen yet, it's in his deck still, but he had it in his hand, he could use it to reduce the severity of this wound being dealt to him, but instead he's going to take a serious wound. So we had a pipe burst on our soldier. Let's find out what serious wound he got from this. Oh no, his arm has been hurt, and it likely burned, or maybe it's even broken, but it says the character has only 1 hand slot for heavy items and objects. If they have 2 heavy items, they must instantly drop 1. So the good news is I only have 1 heavy object, and that's my assault rifle. But the bad news is if I choose or want to pick up something heavy in the future, I'd have to drop that assault rifle, which wouldn't be a very wise decision. So that's going to be quite a tough one to deal with. However, there is a way to deal with these serious injuries. We can choose to dress them. So if we get into certain rooms that allow us to heal, we're able to dress the wound. And when we dress it, this serious wound, remember, if I get 3 of them, my character dies. But if I choose to dress the wound, I can flip it over when I heal myself in order to dress it. And then that negative effect is no longer in play, except the serious wound is still on my character until I heal it from there. And there are cards that would allow you to heal a dressed wound, and that's what this would look like if it was dressed. It would be flipped over. In this case, I have it like this, meaning that I have a serious wound and I also have the negative effect from it, both of which are very bad. So I'm trying not to get 3 of these, because 3 of them in total, whether they're flipped upside down or right side up, doesn't matter. They'll kill me instantly if I have 3 of them. So in this case, I'm going to place this next to my character, something to remember that I won't be picking up any extra heavy items anytime soon. So you might be thinking, hey, you're in the surgery room. You should be able to go ahead and try to dress that serious wound that you have, right? No, the surgery room actually behaves differently than what's called the emergency room. And the emergency room is where you can dress all your serious wounds, or you can heal one of your dressed serious wounds, or heal all your light wounds. But we're not in an emergency room. We're in surgery, and only in surgery, the only thing we can do is a surgery procedure. We can scan all of our contamination cards from our action deck, hand, and discard, and remove infected cards. If we have a larva on our character board, we can remove it, but we actually suffer a light wound and then we automatically have to pass. So that's one that's more focused around removing that larva from you, or in the case of just attempting to try to remove contamination cards, of which we haven't seen yet, but in future missions we will probably see once the intruders get on the board, because that's what they do to you. So surgery room is very, very important, but just not all that useful right now. So for my second action with the soldier, I'm actually going to choose to pass. I want to hold on to this basic repairs card, because when you need to actually repair an engine, you need to use a card or an item to do so. You can only just check the status of the engine when you're in the engine room. So in other words, if I go in there, the engine room itself allows me to spend some cards to just check the status, but in this particular setup, we know it's already damaged. So we need to fix it, meaning I need to hold on to this basic repairs card that allows me to repair it, and I don't want this to disappear by just burning it for some movement. So I'm going to pass right now so that I ensure that I have this going into my next turn, where I can try to generate some movement to get into that engine room and then do this basic repair. So that is going to have me do a hard pass. So now we can go to the help card to determine what we do next. So the very first thing we're going to do is move the time track and the self-destruct track. Now in this particular solo co-op Untold Stories campaign, we're not using the time track, we're using the self-destruct track. So I'll show you, we're going to take that from 3 down to 2. So the self-destruct track is going to move from 3 down to 2 as it gets ever closer to event number 6. So we've moved on the time track. The next thing to do is an intruder attack. We have no intruders, so we skip past that. We have no fire damage, skip past that. Resolve event card. We have no event card deck for this mission, skipping past that. And then intruder bag development step. We don't have an intruder bag for this mission either. So again, if you're using this mission as a bearing as to what the other future missions of this campaign will be like, just remember a lot of the stuff going on in the event phase has been stripped out for this first mission. Remember, it's like a tutorial. It's kind of getting you into the game, getting you prepared for the fun that is yet to come. So even though in this mission we are skipping a bunch of what seem to be really cool and also nasty event steps, those steps are going to come into play later on in future missions. So this is definitely not a stripped down version of the regular game. It's just not a major part of this first mission. So now we can move back to the player phase, and it says draw up to 5 action cards. We're going to do that for each of our characters right now. So we'll do the scientist first. The scientist actually has no cards in hand, so it'll be a brand new 5 cards. First one we have here is risk assessment. So we can use this in a room with a computer, look at the top card from the event deck, then return it to either the top or the bottom of the deck. So this is one that's not really going to be all that useful for this, again, because we don't have an event deck, but I can still use it to pay for basic actions, and that gives me lots of options. Or use it to even pay for particular abilities on cards that require an additional cost showing up in this area here. This is a rest one. It says scan all your contamination cards in your hand and remove all not infected cards. If any of the cards were infected, follow the infection procedure. So again, we're not going to see a lot of that in this first mission, but I have this card at my disposal. Computer skills. So here we can open or close one door in a corridor connected, or if you're in a room with a computer, use its room action without paying its cost. Pretty awesome. That actually would have been great to get if we had been in the command center. A little late for that. Next up here we have repairs. We found another one. This is the one for the scientist that relates to fixing the engines. So this is kind of just as important. It's not a card to hold on to now that we're getting closer to that. So there is that card. We'll definitely be holding on to that. So we've got a total of 4 cards here. Let's go for the last card. and that is going to be intranet. It says, use in a room with a computer, use the room action of any working room with a computer without paying its cost. So this is really powerful. If you're in a room with a computer, you're essentially linked in hub-wise to another room with a computer, where then you can use that ability in that room. Can be very powerful because there's a few different rooms in amongst this ship, and we currently have one in the comm room with a computer, the command center has a computer, and the monitoring room has a computer. And we do need to send the signal from the comm room. So it could be interesting in terms of how we actually go about using this card. Maybe if we have the chance to send the signal through the comm room through a different means, but who knows? This stuff changes so fast. Usually those plans go to the wayside pretty quickly. This is the card that was left over from the soldier from the last round. So now we're gonna go ahead and draw some cards for the soldier. So second card in hand is Interruption. Again, that would have been handy to have when the soldier went into the surgery area there and got badly hurt by the pipe burst. But now we have one. Next we have Search. So again, this is going to help us. We have the availability to search once in the surgery room right now. So there we go. We got our opportunity to do so. So that's fantastic. We'll probably be making use of that. We've got a Rest card here, so that's good as well. Probably something to use for movement to get us closer to the engine rooms. And then last but not least, we have Nerves of Steel. This one says, discard this card during a surprise attack to ignore its effect. That's really good when the intruders are on the board. Not so much right now. I can just use it again as a card to pay. Next thing we're going to do is move the first player token from the Scientist, who had this token right here. It's going to go over to the Soldier. So the Soldier is now going to be first to start off this player phase. And now we move into player actions, 2 actions at a time. Now this search card came at the perfect time, and it's the one I'm going to discard to do the first action that I'd like to do, which is search. I want to search that surgery room. I really want to try to find something that can medically help me deal with my arm. And the great news is, being that I'm in the surgery room, even though the surgery room itself doesn't have an action I can use to help me, I can search and hopefully find an item that could potentially help me. And this search card allows me to grab 2 item cards and pick the best one for me. Plus we tick that searchability of the room from 1 down to 0. So the soldier has gone ahead and searched the surgery room. So we'll tick this from 1 down to 0. Now we're going to grab 2 cards from the green item deck. All right, so our soldier has been rummaging around in the surgery room looking for anything that he can find to help him with his arm. That's really what he's trying to find here. Hopefully we get lucky. So the very first one flipping over is alcohol. Well, I guess he could drink his issues away. So this one says, scan and remove 1 contamination card from your hand. If it was infected, take 1 contamination card. So that's a good one for a potential future mission or a state where we actually have contamination. We don't have it yet, so it's not as high on the list. Let's go ahead and see what the second one is. Ooh, the med kit. Now this could be good, and you'll notice these cards have this symbol, the top left-hand corner. Again, remember, some of these cards can be used for crafting, and we have the crafting breakdown on each of the player boards. You can make things like antidotes, tasers, flamethrowers, Molotov cocktails, once you get 2 different crafted item icons that actually link together to create one of the end products. So for instance, with a med kit, you're halfway to making an antidote. With the alcohol, you're halfway to making either the antidote or the flamethrower or the Molotov cocktail. If I actually had both of these in my possession, this would actually create the antidote, which would be pretty awesome. But I can only actually take one of these right now, and the obvious one to take is the med kit, because I can dress a serious wound, which means I can flip over that injury to my arm. I still have the serious wound, but I can dress it. Or I can actually hold on to it until I get to a room where I can actually, heal my, or I should say dress my wound, and then use this to actually heal it away afterwards. So either way, it's good. So I'm going to go ahead and take the med kit 100%, and we're going to discard the alcohol. Now I'm going to go ahead and spend the card Nerves of Steel in order to do some movement. And that's going to have our soldier head from the surgery room to the laboratory, which is revealed, and we'll talk about what the laboratory can do. But first, we're going to take a look at what happens in the laboratory, and we landed this token right here. So based on the exploration token, the laboratory now is set to 2 searches, and now we're going to go ahead and reference and see what happened inside that laboratory. As the soldier moved into the laboratory, it looked clear, but I should have known. Their AI must have found hundreds of ways to kill us with our own ship. This character suffers 2 light wounds. If this character discards an interruption card, the number of light wounds is reduced to 1. I gotta tell you, it seems like every single room on this ship, it has it out for us, but we do have that interruption card, so we could spend that in order to knock the light wounds down. I think I'm going to, because I already have a serious wound, and if we take 2 light wounds, 1 more light wound pushes us into a serious wound, which will then give us 2, and that means we're just 1 serious wound away, or 1 bad event away from death. That's just way too close for comfort for me right now. So I'm going to go ahead and interrupt this in order to save myself a light wound. Yes, it does slow me down a little bit in terms of what I had planned for this particular turn, but I think it's wise just in case I don't have time to actually dress the serious wound that I already have and get into a tight spot in terms of my health. So now I just have the 2 cards remaining, but now I have to track the fact that I still take 1 light wound. So tracking of the light wound is very straightforward. I'll just take one of these universal markers and place it right over the 1 light wound spot. So as I mentioned, if I had taken 2 from this, it would have started me here instead. And as I mentioned, if I take 1 more light wound when I already have 2 like this, then it pushes you into taking a serious wound card, and this basically gets reset. So I am taking 1 light wound as a result. Thank goodness I interrupted, so I'm not 2, and that's exactly where it sits on the track. Now this all works out pretty good because I have 2 cards left in my hand. One of them is for fixing an engine, and the other is just a rest card that I don't need right now, and I can use it for movement if I so choose. But I've already gone ahead and I searched in the surgery room, and then I moved into the laboratory. So technically at this point in time, my 2 actions are complete. So I have to move over to the scientist at this point. So now we start off the scientist turn. You can see the scientist is still in the storage room, and that room has availability to be searched 2 more times, but I don't have the cards in hand to enable me to search. So I'd rather start moving, to be honest, to get down into this area and then to this side for that particular engine, being that I do have 1 card to repair an engine. Now the good news is I have 2 out of 5 cards that are completely expendable, and I'm going to use one of them right now. It's called Risk Assessment. I'm going to use this card to allow my scientist to move from the storage area to this room down here, and we'll find out how this fares for us. So we'll move the scientist down to this area. We'll flip this one over. Ooh, this could change things. So just before we resolve what that will do to us event-wise, we'll go ahead and flip this room over and see what we found. We found the emergency room. No, this is the room that the soldier needed to find in order to get healed up. There is 1 item in here, so we'll go ahead and rotate that to be pointing towards the arrow, 1, and we're good to go there. And now we're going to go ahead to the Untold Stories book, and we're going to reveal the event based on the legend. So we've moved into the emergency room the scientist has, and this event is a mirror image. It says, not often you see your own body like that. It's like looking into a messed up mirror. I know I should have let everyone else know, but I also know they wouldn't trust me anymore. The body must disappear. Discard 2 cards from your hand and continue the mission. So this is absolutely going to slow us down as we try to dispose of this body. Now, the only good thing with that particular event, and there really isn't too much good about it, is that it's not a random discarding of 2 cards. It's just discard 2 cards. So I can choose which cards I want to get rid of. And there's definitely one in here that's obvious to get rid of, and that's the rest card. I just don't need this at all. It doesn't have any benefit for me in terms of its ability. Now I get into a trickier spot here because I really need this to repair the engine. So this is almost one that I need to keep. Then I have the intranet, which allows me to use a room with a computer, but now I'm so far away from rooms with computers, I don't know if it's useful or not as much as I want it to be. And then I've got this computer skills one. It seems to me like the computer skills one is going to be the one that has to go, as it allows me to open and close doors, which seems nice. And it also says if you're in a room with a computer. Yeah, so this is the one that seems to have to go based on where I'm currently sitting, and I'll keep the other two in hand. So the question in my mind where things get a little bit more difficult to decide on is whether or not I should push myself to go one more room, to be in a similar situation to where the soldier is on the opposite side, so that the next round we just jump into the engine rooms and try to get them going right away. I think I'm going to have to try to do that because our timer is going to be ticking down pretty fast. So even though I don't want to get rid of the intranet card because it could be really useful, I'm going to risk it, and I'm going to go ahead and use this intranet card in order to, and I'm using it as a movement to get my scientists from the emergency room over to this room here. We'll open up this token, and we've got a malfunction marker and a 1. So we'll flip this over and find out what we found. We found the armory. All right, so there's one item in the armory here that's possibly searchable. So we got ourselves in there, and now let's go and find out what event is going to occur in that armory. One other thing to note, guys, is you always want to keep an eye on those quest cards that you have for your characters, and sadly the scientist has not yet found the generator room, but if the generator room ever shows up, I have the potential to get what's called a holo computer if I can activate the item in the generator room, and that's this card right here, which sits underneath my scientist's character board. I also have a card which is specific to the soldier when we find the armory, and that's exactly what the scientist just found. Too bad that it wasn't the soldier in the end. But if the actual soldier is inside the armory room, he can go ahead and activate this item to flip it over, and it's an auto loader, which obviously sounds like it would be very, very beneficial. So sadly, I'm just on the wrong side of the board to take advantage of that, but it's worth mentioning to keep an eye out for those locations that have to do with your quests. Well, this is quite unfortunate. We found event number 7 inside the armory, and it's called Shutdown. Close all the doors leading out of the room you're in. Guys, I could use some help now. Yeah, definitely. The scientist is completely sealed off by himself. It says place 1 standard ammo injury marker next to your character miniature. It represents air being vented out of the room. Remove it at the start of the next round. If the marker is gone and your character is still trapped in the room, suffer 1 light wound at the start of each round. So we got to get the heck out of this room as soon as possible. And then it says once any door leading to this room is opened, this effect ends. Now what's really bad about this is this putting doors right at a junction next to the engine room. So not only is it bad for my scientist, it's bad for just accessing and then getting back out of easily through that side section of the ship when we need to escape. So this is really going to gum things up. So here are the doors sealing off the armory and the scientist inside. I've got the ammo injury marker, which I'm going to place next to my character here in the armory. And this again represents air being vented out of the room, and we'll be removing it at the start of the next round. So that's very, very important. But my goal is to just get out of this room in some way, shape, or form, really through one of those 2 major doors heading to engine room number 1. So I only have the 1 card, the repair card, and that's only good for the engine room. It's not going to help me get these doors open. And so at this point in time, I'm going to choose as a scientist to go ahead and pass. So I'm going to pass my turn back over to the soldier and essentially sit in this room hoping to get the card that I need the next go around. The soldier is going to begin his turn by spending this rest card in order to move from the laboratory into engine room number 3. So the soldier has left the library and is heading into engine room number 3, and hopefully in the future is able to repair this engine. Now I do still have the 1 card left, basic repairs, but I need 2 more cards on top of it to pay for the cost on the card. So it'll be a total of 3 cards being discarded when I try to repair this, and I don't have that right now. So at this point in time, based on what I'm trying to accomplish and anything else I could potentially do, I am going to be forced to pass. So I'm going to go ahead and pass for the soldier, and that's going to have us move into the event phase. And at this point, we all know that the only thing we can do during the event phase for this mission number 1 is to bump this self-destruct timer down to the next position, getting even closer to event 6. 6. So we'll start things off with the scientist, and the scientist currently has 1 card in hand, the repairs card. I'm going to draw 4 cards from a brand new shuffled action deck because we have used all the cards up to the end of the last round we did. So this time around here, we're coming at it with a fresh deck all shuffled up, and we're ready to draw. So let's see what we get. Got ourselves risk assessment, one we can definitely use to burn. We have search, which is not going to be all that great in a room. We're trying to find something to get that door open. Intranet, not going to be good for us because there's no computer in that room. Demolition, the last card that I got for the scientist, is one that allows me to get through a door. Thank goodness. On the soldier side of things, we have the basic repairs card, and we're going to draw 4 more cards to fill up the hand. So we've got a search card, we have nerves of steel, we have an interruption card, and we have full auto. And we're also going to see the first player marker come back to the scientist. So the scientist will be starting things off, but that is going to trigger something based on our event number 7 from before. So the rulebook states, or at least the Untold Stories comic book states, that when we start the next round for this character, this red cube disappears, meaning we're now in a really bad spot because at the start of every subsequent round with this character, so long as that red cube is gone, we're going to be taking a light wound, which is not good. The good news is we have that 1 round grace, and that's just enough to get that door open. So we're starting things off with the scientist. So right away out of the gates, I'm going to go ahead and use this card for demolition, which allows us to destroy 1 closed door in a corridor connected to a room you are in. So this will immediately take away that stress of being trapped in this room. So I'm going to go ahead, either way, it doesn't matter which one I destroy here. I'm just going to destroy this one in order to gain access to that engine room. Now, looking at my hand of cards, I have 1, so that burned in action just doing that. So it really did slow me down, in essence, from being able to get in there, plus action the engine, right? Because that would be a total of 3 actions to not only take down the door, then move, then actually repair the engine. That door does slow me down. So what's going to happen is I'm going to go ahead with the 4 remaining cards that I have and find the one that I believe is the most useless of the bunch, which I think is going to be risk assessment. So this one here, which has to do with computers in the room, which I don't need anymore, is going to be the one that's burnt in order to allow the scientist to wheel his way into engine room number 1. But that is going to conclude, at least for what he can do right now with his 2 actions. And then we're going to move over to the soldier, who's very much ready to repair engine number 3. All right, so the soldier is up next. He wants to do a basic repair because he's in engine room number 3. So by going ahead and doing this, which allows me to repair the engine in the engine room you're in, I need to also, when discarding this basic repairs card when playing it, I need to pay 2 more cards. So I'm going to play Nerves of Steel and Full Auto as well. All 3 of these cards will go in the discard pile, leaving me with 2 left over, but this allows me to get engine number 3 in working order. So it's time to repair that engine. And just like that, we've got the engine in working order, so job well done by the soldier. Now we need to get out of that room, loop back around to the comm center there in the bottom left-hand corner. We need to send a signal from there, plus we need to get through that door and get into engine room number 2 next. So for my second action, I'd love to keep both of these cards, but knowing that I need to make some movement and progress, I'm going to go ahead and decide to burn the interruption card to move from the engine room number 3 back to the laboratory. So the soldier knows that there's no time to waste. He needs to get moving, so he's already headed back to the laboratory, and that's going to be the 2 actions that the soldier can do. For his turn, it's now going to go back to the scientist. Now, you guys remember where the scientist was from his last turn. He was in engine room number 1 and ready to repair it. So I'm going to use the repairs card in order to start the repairs in this engine, and I only need 1 additional card discarded in order to do this repair. So I will take the search card, I think, and let that one go. So those are the two. Actually, maybe I'll change my mind on that, because maybe I'll want to search the armory one more time. Maybe I'll get rid of intranet. There's no computers anywhere around here. So those are the two that I'm going to use, and the scientist is now going to get that engine number 1 in working order. And just like that, we've got 2 engines up and running. We just need that middle one in engine room number 2. For my second action, I am going to end up discarding the last card I have, which is a search card, in order to do a movement to get my scientist back into the armory room, because he needs to make some progress out of here, because he's got a door to deal with in the future. Now we move back to the soldier for 2 actions, and I have 1 card left in hand, which is a search card. I am super tempted to go ahead and spend this search card to try to find items in here, but I would much rather just wait, because I want to see what's going to happen with event number 6. I want to make some progress movement wise first before I start risking searching. Plus, if I move 1 more, I'm still in another room that's green, so it's not like I'm moving out of a room that's red and I won't have a chance to get that again. I've still got an opportunity in the other room, but I'm just noticing that that surgery room is at 0, so there actually is no opportunity to search there. There's only opportunity to search in the laboratory that I'm in, which has 2 searches available still. Ooh, that certainly makes the whole thing a lot tougher. But you know what? At the end of the day, it's not a weapon-based thing, so I really am not going to waste my time with it. I'm going to just get moving. So I'm going to go ahead and spend this search card as much as I want to on movement. We'll move our soldier from the laboratory to surgery. And as I have no more cards to play for the soldier, I'm going to go ahead and choose to pass. Coming over to the scientist, I'm in the same boat. I have no more cards to play and I don't wish to do anything further, so I'm also going to pass. So we move into the event phase, and the event phase has us moving this self-destruct marker down to 06. The tipster was right. They do mean business. This is the boarding party for event number 6. If they reach the hibernatorium before we make a jump, we're as good as dead, but if they don't, they'll turn into wet splatter on our walls. Put a Marine squad token on each of the 2 access hatches. At the start of each turn, move the Marine squad tokens 1 room towards the hibernatorium, ignoring any closed doors. The first squad moves through rooms numbered 04 and 005, or I should say 004 and 005. The second squad moves through rooms 006 and 005. Put the event 9 token and a story trigger marker in the hibernatorium. Once a Marine token reaches this place, read event 9. So as per event number 6, we have Marine squads which are entering into the ship through evacuation section B, as well as evacuation section A. And we also have an event number 9 in the hibernatorium in the middle, as well as a story event trigger that'll happen if these Marine squads reach that hibernatorium before we do. We're trying to get to the hibernatorium before they do. So how this is going to work is, as of right now, based on this reference card that I have been showing you throughout this entire video, the Marine squad's going to move actually before the player phase, and that's when they're going to trigger. Now you'll remember we just went through the event phase, which had the self-destruct timer hit this 6, so we are now starting officially a brand new turn. And a turn, based on this help card, is this entire run of things to check. You'll see at the very bottom it says end of turn. So the very first thing that's going to happen before the player phase is the Marine squads, even though they just came in, they're going to move. It's pretty vicious. So they're already on the move from the get-go, and they're going to move based on what we read earlier in terms of the room numbers. But in essence, both of them are moving. There really only needs to be one, because they're both going to essentially meet up here and then eventually both move into the hibernatorium. But for the sake of it, we'll move both of the squads to these spots. The next time they move on the next full turn, they'll land both here, and then they'll both run into the hibernatorium. In essence, giving us 2 full turns, which comprise themselves of many rounds that our players can use to try to do as many things as possible, burning all the cards through, and hopefully able to pull this off before they get to the hibernatorium. So they've got 2 full turns to get to the hibernatorium, and we've got 2 full turns to send the signal, crack open the door that's into engine room number 2 and repair that engine, and then hightail it back to the hibernatorium. So for those of you that wanted to see kind of the overall state of the board as we have it at the moment, this is what you're looking at. Now, for those of you that have actually played this mission before and have some feedback as to how we could potentially win this one, let me know in the comments below, because I'd love to hear your thoughts. I think it's going to come right down to the wire. We are doing pretty good in terms of haven't really dilly-dallied throughout this entire thing to this point. We've been pushing movement as much as possible. The scientists got gummed up a little bit by that malfunction in the armory, and it's certainly going to slow them down, but still progress has been made on the engines, and now our focus is to try to go for the comms room. Now, the really cool strategy with the comms room is, remember, the scientist has a card that allows him to use another room's ability from a different room that has a computer. So for instance, the scientist, even though he's in the armory, doesn't have a computer in that room. There isn't one in the emergency room, but if he was able to get to the command center or the monitoring room, he would be able to actually activate the comms room. Now, that's not exactly the greatest, because it has him wasting a lot of movement to get over there, so it might not be the best strategy. It might be better for him to just actually go to the comms room and just deal with it, and maybe have the soldier head to the door. But I think what's going to come down to is, when our decks refresh, who is going to have the engine repair card is really going to be the person that's going to be forced from the comms room into that engine room. So I think either way, both of our characters need to go there, unless we find out one of the characters gets their engine room repair card early enough that I can distinguish that's the character that needs to get in that engine room number 2 and fix it. The other character can just deal with the comms and then get the heck out of there. And then we have to get through places like the nest or in the monitoring room, each of which are going to have their own events that are going to trigger as we try to get back to the hibernatorium before these nasty squads of Marines get there. Hopefully not before us. Lots to think about, pretty crazy. Really enjoy it, definitely stressful, lots going on here. Now again, this is without any of the meat of the intruders in the game yet, which will just add all kinds of stuff to this when we get into mission number 2. And so thank you guys. At this point, this is a perfect time to stop. I really want to hear your feedback, whether you've played the game before or you haven't. I'm sure all of you guys have some thoughts on what we could or couldn't do. Give me some ideas on strategy and efficiency and how we can make this happen, and I'll do my best to see if I can pull it off. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, keep on rolling solo.